Thanks for staying with us. So for those of you that live in Lagos, you hear a lot of building collapse. So to forestall incessant building collapse in Lagos and improve the quality of buildings within the metropolis, join us on the show is the General Manager of the Lagos State Materials Testing Laboratory Engineer, Funsho Elulade. Welcome to the show, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
So when we hear of building collapse, usually we hear some old buildings within Lagos State that had collapse. So then we beg to question, is it that they've expired, the materials have expired, are used for many years? And sometimes we hear new buildings collapsing. So then we talk about, okay, what kind of materials do they use? So let's start with the old buildings. Is it that a building has a lifespan? After X amount of years, it should be built, it should pull down? Or buildings do last. Around the world, we have buildings 200 years old, 100. How come we're having collapsed building here?
Thank you for the question. Every building in the world has a design state or serviceability limit state, whereby the building ceases to function optimally due to weathering, rain, sun, natural occurrences and stuff. But the fundamental thing about buildings is to make sure when constructing, you use the right material, a quality material, and you go through, various tests, material testing, whilst you are constructing. So as it applies to old building, it applies to new building. If the right material is not used, the building will not last for as long as you want it to last. If you do not carry out the requisite tests, especially from conception, when you know that you want to build, you carry out a feasibility study to know the kind of ground you want to put that building on. You need to do a particular test that will tell you this is the kind of foundation that the building should sit on. For example, if you go to the island that has a high water table, it's different from the mainland that has a consolidated ground. So not until you carry out that test, you cannot determine what foundation goes under it. So people will say, because Mr. A has built and my house is beside Mr. A, I want to adopt the same system, forgetting that the soil strata may be different. So you will find out that a house will stand upright, the one beside it will collapse.
So I've seen where somebody built a foundation and the house was like this in the beginning, when I sitting well. So is it possible that, because there was this period where we didn't see proper regulations, where people just had to create housing themselves, and it's become the norm here. We are creating our own housing. There's no government building any structure for you to go and buy, and because of that cost, people would build and have faith that it will sit. Is it possible that that kind of error can pass and such a thing?
Oh, sure. I'm sure that is the reason why the Lagos State government established the agency I run. It was established on the 6th of April, 2006. But notwithstanding, if you see all the houses like the UBA, which used to be Chararan's building, the First Bank, the Nitel, they carried out the proper tests. But unfortunately, because a lot of people who are non-technical find their way into this building space or built environment, by the time they supervise a building, they gather experience, they will take it further. So it has messed up the whole built environment. Whereas the built environment is technical. For you to carry out any building, you need to employ some certain professionals. For example, you need an architect, you need a structural engineer, you need a civil engineer, you need a project manager, you need a quantity surveyor. But you will see all these things collapsed into one person who doesn't even have that sort of experience. So you now have to ask the question, what supervision will that person or can that person give? And most definitely, it will affect any structure.
So I understand the importance of regulation to prevent challenges. I also understand the fact that I've attended several real estate conferences, and the truth of the matter is we have housing deficit. The housing deficit we have is huge, but the houses we're building isn't for those who need it, because we're not building for the poor, we're building for the rich to get more apartments. And the poor people that now have to build are price conscious of everything that goes into the building. So sometimes I feel that what the regulators do is punitive as opposed to informative. Knowing that you are not solving the problem, you are focusing on punishing people who are trying to make ends meet. Some people are just building 1 2-bedroom and then you close it down and all of that. How would you, I want you to help us raise awareness to the importance of getting the right materials on, number one. Number two, how do we ensure that importation, because they say imported cables melt. You know, now everybody now goes to buy made in Nigeria cables, but the imported cables still get into the country and it's cheaper. Iron rod that is imported, some of them cheaper and not good quality. So how do we ensure that what comes in is also so in good quality, delivery what it's supposed to deliver, to avoid Nigerians buying in blind faith and getting scammed?
Yeah, I think when it comes to importation of construction materials, I think solely, apart from the ones that were manufactured in the country, the responsibility lies with SON, Standard Organization of Nigeria. So there's nothing Lagos State Material Testing can do to control the quality of any construction material other than carrying out the required tests to make sure they meet the required standard. Because at the end of the day, Lagos State government is aware that, okay, there is quackery in the system, counterfeiters are all over the place. So the only way for the government to prevent lives and properties is to make sure they carry out the requisite test. And if you look at the vision of Material Testing Laboratory, is to ensure zero tolerance to building and civil engineering infrastructure collapse in the state. And the whole way we achieve that is to establish a system whereby it prevents distress building and civil engineering infrastructure. The government is trying its best is to make sure we carry out tests from the inception to completion. So that's why you see that some of these buildings are sealed off.
Right.
Because once we go there, we carry out samples, we go to the laboratory, we test. Once it does not meet the standard, we will now have to tell you what to do. But in the interim, we will have to stop you from continuing the construction until, you know,
Okay. So I believe that information is powerful. And what I see most of the time is, you know, somebody who has hustled all year long, just trying to get that roof over their head, and then they just get into this small money they have been saving, collected a job here and there, and let's call it Uncle Kayode, he knows how to put block, foundation, blah, blah, blah. Let's call this one, he knows how to put zinc, and that's what we see most of the time. But what is government doing to take out these individuals, try and help them in building quality? Because I know that in most foreign countries, they've helped individuals don't really build. So the government takes ownership and then gives mortgage. That's the way you can guarantee there's quality. Is there any plan that government is doing, yes, to help, especially the low-income people? Because they will tell you, at least you have a job that earns so and so. But we still have to cater for the low-income people. Yep.
Well, it's unfortunate that the juncture we find ourselves in this country, if you look at the economies of early 20th century and compare it with the 21st century, you can see that variance is so huge. And credit to Lagos State government, they've been building houses for low income, but what is the dollar saying today? 2 years ago, how much was dollar compared to today? 2 years ago, how much did we buy diesel compared to how much diesel is sold today? So there are lots of indices and parameters that determines, what government will do. And if you look at it, the government is trying its best, and you cannot say that if you give a contract or you outsource a contract to a contractor to build for low earners. Hypothetically, he built for 50 million, and you want to give it to low earners. How much is how much do you give them? So who subsidizes the remainder? So it's unfortunate we'll still find ourselves in this situation in this country until things decide to change and until people have to understand, because I listened at the backstage to your previous guest. People have to understand that must you have to build? That is the question. Even if you build, when you die, would you take the house with you? That's another question. So why not do things that will make you live happily? Easily. Than getting yourself into unnecessary, dungeons.
Okay, let me go on a quick break. When we come back, we continue this conversation. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your view will be right back.
Thanks for staying with us. We're still speaking with the General Manager, Lagos State Materials Testing Laboratory Engineer, Funsho Elulade. When I read your mission statement, it says that to establish a system that will prevent distress on buildings and civil engineering infrastructure through quality control assurance mechanism. Tell us a bit about your quality control mechanism to ensure quality across the state, buildings in the state.
Yeah, what we have done is to establish various tests to address various construction components. For example, if you want to determine a foundation, we either carry out a standard penetration test or cone penetration test, which I don't want to bore the viewers with a lot of technical jargons. Then when you move from foundation and you start building, we collect all the materials, for example, the cement, the water, the sand, name it, anything you want to use. We carry them to the laboratory. We carry out the necessary tests to make sure those materials are up to standard. Even if we have to miss you whilst the construction is ongoing, there's another test we carry out which is called non-destructive test. That's NDT, which we will take to your building or construction. We check all the structural elements to make sure they are fit. In situations where we cannot guarantee because of the terrain where you are built, we will request that you will do a foundation probing. That means because we weren't there, we didn't design for your, foundation, so we would have to probe that foundation to make sure it is the right foundation.
Who really doing this thing?
Let me let you come because a final question.
Because I wanted to ask, what could your agency have done to prevent what happened in Ikoyi? And we see a lot of new buildings falling now. And your agency, is right there at the regulation of these issues. What did you do? What could you have done to prevent? Did you really do anything at all? And what role are you playing in this inquiry that,
Okay, thankfully, Lagos State Material Testing did not do any business with the building owner. Because when that collapse happened 1st of November last year, the first thing I did was to go into the archives. Do we have any collaboration with the building? Nothing was found. The agency regulates all the private laboratories in Lagos. I sent a letter to all of them. Has any one of you, or did any one of you, approved or whatever? Nothing in this place.
How did they build that high?
So this is what I'm saying, that people, especially, the owners of building, they will just employ, half-baked, semi-skilled laborer to supervise their building because they want to cut corners, they want to save money,
So is it an option that when I'm building, I just choose to neglect the Lagos State
That's what I'm saying. I will use this medium to appeal to, the good people of Lagos State.
Okay.
It's important that you come and carry out the required tests so that even when you finish that building and you are sleeping in your house, your mind is at peace that nothing would happen.
I know you have an event tomorrow. Tell us about the event.
Okay, the event is a follow-on of the inaugural stakeholders conference that we did last year. It was agreed by all the stakeholders that we make it a yearly event. So we're having the second edition of that event this year at Marriott Hotel tomorrow, Thursday the 16th, and it starts at 9, where all the experts come under one roof to, you know, provide a solution to how we can reduce to the barest minimum collapses in Lagos. And of course, it's another opportunity that allows people to market themselves, you know, to talk about what they do, because we invited from semi-skilled artisans to the very top, you know, estate developers, private developers, and even materials, construction materials producers.
Wow.
And thirdly, it serves as an opportunity, the first public opportunity, to actually discuss all these recent collapses, especially the Ikoyi, because there hasn't been any public forum or fora where that has been discussed. So tomorrow presents that opportunity.
You don't have to register, just come and show up.
No, you can't, you show up.
Okay.
It's a public thing, you know, because I believe that if there is enough public advocacy or enlightenment, people will know that they have to carry out the necessary test, you know. So, information is, knowledge is power.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank
all right.
you for having me.
That's all we can take on this segment. When we come back, finally, our hot topic. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.